the time a tenant had my car towed. About a year before the whole pandemic thing, I lost my government job. I am an audiologist, and so I had little doubt I would find work. But I also knew my best bet for top earnings is to work for myself. So I secured my financing, sold a bunch of stocks and mutual funds that had done pretty well, and set about finding a property. My plan was to open a practice but buy a building that had rentable space to help bring in an additional revenue stream. I eventually came upon this great little building in the heart of downtown with a nice, big parking lot. The building was a former commercial garage. The giant bay doors where trucks used to come in and out of were replaced by these really nice walls full of windows that still opened like garage doors but formed a covered space in front of the units. This is relevant later. I knew the property just from being around town, and I thought they looked really cool. They are crisp and modern and, in my opinion, have a cool Scandinavian feel to them. Anyway, I love this building. As I roll up to take my first tour with the realtor and the owner, I pull into the lot as instructed. And the second I step out of my car, I see a woman rushing out of the building toward me. I am wondering, is this the owner? Someone who works for the owner? No. It is a woman with a face full of piercings loudly telling me I need to move my car now or it will be towed. I have a meeting here. I began. She would have none of it. Move it now or I call the police, she said. I was about to move my car when the realtor and the owner, on the other side of the lot, called over and began walking toward me. She immediately retreated before they got close enough for us to work all of this out. I clarified that I was okay to park there and they confirmed it was fine. I asked who that was and they told me she owns one of the shops in the unit. Just ignore her, the owner said. She thinks she runs the place. And realtor and owner shared a chuckle. I walk the property and we go over some things and life is good. I get in my car and leave pretty convinced this is the place I need to buy. Because I also intended to house my practice there. I agreed to lease one of the units and start getting set up while all of the closing stuff that needed to happen could be completed. So for about 2 months I was a tenant just like all of the other tenants. I never really got into the fact that I was buying the building because my interactions with my neighbors were polite but transactional. Well, mostly polite. The woman with all of the yelling, let's call her Megan, was none too pleased with my presence. She owned a store that sold custom-made, well, costumes I suppose? Lots of steampunk outfits and period costumes that she makes herself. Impressive work though. Honestly, I have to imagine she does most of her trade online since I seldom see people in her place. I was there not more than a week when she barged into my unit and began making sure I was aware that the parking lot was not for customers and was for them only. And I was only allotted one spot. I said, thanks, but I have parking all worked out with Gus. Owner, I appreciate your concern, and I showed her the door. The parking lot, which I was purchasing along with the building, has 60 spaces. There are 5 units. According to her, we are each allowed 1 parking space and no customers or visitors are permitted to park there at all. So I know there are either shenanigans afoot or this woman is speaking out of her ass. Anyway, I ignore her. Time passes. I close on the building. Gus sends out a heartwarming thank you email to all tenants saying he appreciates their years of business together but that the property is now owned by my company name, LLC, of which I am the owner. Pretty clear stuff. The very first thing I did was I did a reorg on the parking lot. Each unit gets 1 regular parking space. Primo spots right next to the building. There are 2 15-minute loading spots back there as well. I designated the next 5 closest spaces to handicapped parking. The rest was just parking. My long-term plan is to put in one of those automated parking kiosks so people who are there to patronize the businesses can park for free, but anyone else will have to pay. But that's down the road. For now, I just needed to formalize some stuff and just accept that I may have some people parking there illegally, and if it becomes a problem I'll just have to hit the security cameras to see who is abusing the system. Anyway, Megan is furious. She is furious that there are not enough handicap spots. There were none before. She is pissed that she needs more than 15 minutes for a loading zone. Who is timing it? She is pissed most of all. However, because she was never consulted. Flash forward a few days and I parked on a non-parking spot. The sidewalk in front of my building is privately owned. Basically, you turn off of the public sidewalk and walk down the private sidewalk to where all of the businesses are. I parked on a paved patch next to my unit, on the far side away from the public sidewalk, accessible only by my parking lot. I parked there, with every legal right to do so. By the way, because I was unloading equipment. Since I own the space I was parked on and everything around it. I didn't move my car right after. I walk outside and my car is gone. So I immediately assume someone stole my car. Then there's Megan standing in her doorway with a big shit-eating grin on her face. I ask her if she knows anything about my missing car. "Oh, was that your car? I saw a car parked illegally so I had it towed." I said, "Laugh it up. Any expense is getting added to your rent." I went to the tow company that the prior owner hired and I laid into him for towing anything from my property without authorization. His argument was that he had a contract with the property. He did not. He had a contract with the company that formerly owned the building that was now null. In the end, I knew arguing would get me nowhere, so I paid him and took my car. I left with hate in my heart and my mind solely focused on revenge. I began really scrutinizing my security tapes and discovered that all of these unaccounted for vehicles in the parking lot all had something in common. Megan. I had a suspicion that she was selling parking in my lot. So I waited by one of the cars until the guy arrived. I told him, as he walked from an area that was not my building, that he was not authorized to park there. He looked confused and told me to mind my own business and he pays for parking. I introduced myself as the owner of the lot and asked who he was paying and how much. The answer was Megan and $125 per month. Suddenly, her business made a lot more sense. I thought of confronting her. I thought of just straight up evicting her. Instead, I hired a security company. They set up a temporary booth at the entrance of the parking lot and a guard ensured that everyone there was there for one of the businesses. If someone parked and wandered off somewhere else, they were told they were going to be towed. Anyone who claimed to be paying for parking would just be turned away. What followed was around 24 very angry people in Megan's store over the course of the week. They paid good money for those spots and now she was pulling out the carpet? People were pissed. Megan lays pretty low for a while. Then COVID strikes and we're all rightly in fear for our livelihood. As soon as it was legal, I told the tenants they could open the big garage door and have a covered outdoor space for their trade. This was a necessary thing to keep them open and was outside the scope of their lease since they were not allowed to put in outdoor seating, etc. Everyone is super happy about this. Except Megan. Megan's unit is flanked by a coffee shop on one side and a little specialty bakery on the other. So you now have to walk around an outdoor seating area to get into her store. It's the same situation for my unit. However, and it just isn't that big of a deal. Megan is fuming. She starts calling the police multiple times a day every day for supposed COVID violations on my part and the part of the other tenants. This was after. By the way, I said absolutely nothing about her being in her store and working even when non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed. The cops stopped coming after her third or fourth call. At this point, I had enough. Her lease was up last May and so I non-renewed it. She threatened up and down that she was going to sue me, and when she was done the whole building would be hers. I responded by suing her for the $125 per mo she collected from all of those people for parking. Best of all, she just didn't show up to court, and so it resulted in a summary judgment in my favor. I don't expect I will collect, though she abandoned at least a few $1,000 worth of inventory and equipment when she left. So that will help. Edit. Thanks for the awards, everybody. I am shocked at how much this blew up. Cheeseburger.com. You do not have my permission to monetize my intellectual property. My dad got a summary judgment against a towing company once. They flat out didn't show up in court. Pro tip. It's that one crazy thing that judges hate. My dad was really only trying to get back the value of the property that the towing company said they threw away, but the judge ended up awarding him a fair bit more than that. Dad tries to get a check out of these guys and they're delaying, so he gets a sheriff's deputy to go out with him to their business, and he starts writing down VIN numbers of tow trucks in the lot. The owners come out and ask what they're up to, and they basically say, well, since you aren't paying me, we're here to take your property to auction it off. Yeah. They cut him a check that day. Then, because the company had a contract with the city for towing, he started calling up everyone he could at the city to inform them about who they were dealing with. Yeah, that contract got canceled. That bit about biting your tongue and setting up security when you found out was brilliant. Saved yourself the headache of a fruitless confrontation, while sending a couple dozen right to her door. The long game. Love it. The parking fees she was collecting might have been untaxed. This might have gotten better if the IRS, or your country's equivalent, got involved. Love it. And just send it to some sketchy collection agency and for a 50% cut. They'll never bother you, but for sure will annoy her for years to come. As for the abandoned inventory, what you mean is she didn't vacate the premises in perfect condition. Charge a cleaning fee. And if she doesn't pay up, small claims. Collect. Enjoy. So she was stopping bakery and coffee shop customers from parking in the lot for their building? So she was chasing away their customers. Who knows how much she cost them in revenue because they decided not to visit again. I appreciate your username op. Did you also tell the last owner about the parking? I'm sure they'd love to know. Decent story. Though you had cause to cancel her lease. Sue her and have her arrested when you found out about her parking scheme. The building sounds awesome. By the way, kind of reminds me of this guy. At least in some jurisdictions there are ways to enforce a judgment against somebody that refuses to pay. Up to and including having local law enforcement show up to seize property up to the value of what they owe. Your lawyer should be able to tell you what options are available where you are. In the end, I knew arguing would get me nowhere, so I paid him and took my car. You should have called the cops. Regarding the towing company, I would have immediately called the cops and asked to have them charged with theft. The tow company can take up the issue with their former customer after they return your property, since they failed to terminate the contract properly. Upvote for audiologists. So she knew you owned the property and insisted on fucking with you? What was her endgame? Surely she knew her lease wouldn't get renewed. You should have said that the parking lot has a new owner, so all paid parking rent should go to the new owner. Nice. But you didn't describe her expression when she realized you were the new owner. Tell us about that moment. I want to envision the crestfallenness, tears of joy. He had a contract with a property? So the property signed the contract with him? I guarantee she wasn't just selling parking spots. She was selling drugs out of that shop. That's why she wanted things to stay the way they were. That's why she was so pissed about how hard it was for people to get into her shop. Even though she was a niche vendor and probably had little to no foot traffic. She knew people buying drugs would not want to do business around all these prying eyes. Well done. I can't believe the entitlement of people like Megan. But bravo for sticking it to her. Very nice story.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.